I gotta be honest, I'm a little stunned right now because even as much with all the thinking I've done that's been critical of Christianity, I just came across something on the internet, on Reddit, that I hadn't actually thought of before. I don't know, because there's always like a new hole you can find in the plot of Christianity, and this one was the Bible. In the Bible, God slash Jesus tell Christians to forgive everyone 77 times 7, to forgive those who have trespassed you, to love your enemies. But the thing is, God didn't even do that. Adam and Eve sinned one time, and he decided, instead of forgiving them, instead of just immediately forgiving them, he decided to create a place of eternal torture and torment for them. And not only for them, for Adam and Eve, but also for their kids. And their kids. I mean, maybe, I guess you can argue about the Christian lore or whatever. Maybe, Adam and Eve, they repent later on in the story so that they do get to go to heaven. But the point is, they sinned one time. And then now they're deserving of an eternity of burning. Like, you're like, oh, they sinned one time. Well, good thing we have a place for that. Good thing I actually got a place set up just for that. And it's like, if God was really committed to forgiving people, then he would have never needed to create hell. There would be no point. Because, a guy like God, he's got infinite resources, unlike humans. He could just forgive people forever. Like, he doesn't actually need hell. Like, it's not like humans have any power over him, Like, the only reason for him to create hell and eternal torture would just be if he wanted to. Because, like, humans are not making him do anything. He created the whole system, And it's like, I feel like there's discourse in there about how, I feel like I remember learning in the Bible or in Sunday school that we shouldn't a child shouldn't be punished for the sins of their fathers, for the sins of their parents. But God literally does that, though. Like, once Adam and Eve sin, he says that, like, every human being is now cursed to die. Like, that's crazy. They sinned one time. They sinned one time. I mean, is there even any record of them sinning more than once in their life? I don't know. But they sinned one time. And now you're telling me they went from, getting to live for millions of years to getting to live for like 100-something years? Like, just because... And was this the sin of, like, killing people? Did they rape somebody? Like, did they commit genocide? Did they wrongfully touch kids? No, they ate an apple. And it's like, oh, well, it's symbolic of what? You can't tell me that all sins are the same. Otherwise, our law system... Like, if you actually believe that all sins and mistakes and errors and wrongs are the same, then why don't we have a law system that puts someone in prison for life for stealing an apple from Walmart? Like, why don't we do that? Like, in your eyes, you think we should be more like God, right? So then why don't we set up our judicial system to be more like that? To be more like how God wanted it to be, right? And you're saying, oh, well, in God's eyes, all sins are the same. Okay, so shouldn't we be trying to become more like Christ? More like God? So shouldn't we try to set up a system like that? And of course, deep down, you know that that's ridiculous. Maybe you're going to have trouble finding the words for it, but you do realize that it is ridiculous what God did. Because it's like Like when we talk about forgiving people, it's like people always have a Bible verse for that, don't they? Let's see if I can find some. Ephesians 4:32 and Colossians 3:13 encourage people to forgive others just as Christ forgave you. Matthew 18, Jesus instructs forgiving not just 7 times, but 77 times. Matthew chapter 6 and Luke chapter 6 emphasize that forgiving others is linked to receiving forgiveness from God. But is it though? Is God actually a forgiving God if he can't forgive the first sin ever? Like Adam and Eve had never been alive before. They were literally the first rats in his experiment. So you would think like you would be showing the most grace, you would be giving the most slack to your first participants in the trial. People who have literally never been alive before. They don't have parents. They don't have people to show them how to live. So you're telling me you're giving them the least amount of slack? How does that make any sense? And the thing is, it doesn't make sense. There is no way to like right this ship. Because none of it makes sense. It's like we talk about how Jesus dying on the cross was the ultimate act of forgiveness or whatever, but how? Like, you don't have to kill somebody to forgive someone else. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like there's multiple instances where Jesus forgives someone without having to kill anybody else. So why is it that for God to forgive someone, he has to kill himself? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like Jesus is God, right? So sometimes Jesus can forgive people without having to kill anybody. But sometimes when Jesus is being God, when Jesus is also being himself, he has to kill himself in order to forgive other people. Like why? It's like you're just putting on a show. Like are you trying to make people just feel guilty? Like how is that helping anything? They already feel guilty. Why do you need to go and kill this Jesus guy? Why do you need to kill yourself when you're literally like you're an all-powerful person? You could just snap your fingers. And it's I need to stop doing videos like this because it really is ridiculous. It's just pointless. Like, I feel like I'm wasting my life, honestly, by even talking about this. Because it's like, I feel like I'm trying to explain to someone that Neverland isn't a real place. That Disney characters are fictional characters. Like, even though there's lots of people that love Disney characters, people that love Peter Pan, even though there's people that dress up like Peter Pan, it doesn't mean that that story is actually something that happened, ever. Just because a lot of people like the story of Peter Pan or the story of Harry Potter, that doesn't mean that that story is real. Even if people dedicate their lives to Harry Potter, even if someone were to die so that the Harry Potter books could not be burned, that doesn't mean that the Harry Potter books were true. It just means I really like the book. Even if like the Harry Potter books go on to be the oldest books ever in recorded history because maybe some older books get lost. Like let's say in 10,000 years, the Harry Potter books are the only remaining evidence for society in the year in the millennium of the 2000s. Like, does that mean that the Harry Potter books were actually things that happened? Does that mean that Hogwarts was a real place? Does that mean that people were actually casting spells? Obviously not. Like, just because a book is old, just because a book has a lot of fans, even if some Harry Potter fans were to die for their belief in J.K. Rowling and her authorship, that doesn't mean that the book is true in any way. I mean, it's true that the book was written by somebody. It's true that it was made up. It's true that, like, the idea of those characters is the idea of the characters is real. It doesn't mean that any of it is actually legitimately true, though, or that any of it actually legitimately happened. It doesn't mean that it's not fiction, you know? So hopefully you see the parallel I'm drawing between Harry Potter and the Bible, okay? There's no reason anyone should believe that the Bible is true. There just isn't. Like, yeah, maybe there was like a couple events in there, maybe 10 events in there that actually happened. Yeah, that's just called historical fiction. Like, that's what folklore is. You know, you take some things that actually happened and then you make it very metaphorical and hyperbolic, you know, like the Greek gods, you know. Like, Greece was a real place. It's just people that they wanted to tell history, but with a little bit more imagination. That's all it is. It's not, but all of it was not real. Most of it was not actually something that happened. It's not nonfiction. But yeah, I just thought that was a really good point. That you can find like an infinite amount of Bible verses that tell humans, that command humans to forgive others who have wronged them. But when God first had the opportunity to forgive humans, he didn't do it. He punished them. That was the first thing he did. What? Like, you're telling me, you know the future. You know people are going to mess things up. And you know that in the future you're going to command people to forgive constantly. Like the 7 times 77 thing was, you know, a metaphor for Jesus saying that you should forgive endlessly. And so God knew that he was going to come down in human form and command people to forgive endlessly. But he couldn't even forgive the very first sin. He couldn't do that. And like, so he knew that he was going to be a hypocrite. Because, you know, he sees the future. He knows that humans are going to mess up and sin. And he also knows that in the future sometime he's going to command people to forgive endlessly. But then he chooses not to even do that. He doesn't even follow his own advice. When he's the one that has an infinitely more power than humans do. Like, it's ridiculous. You know, obviously this is just shit that has been made up by like 1,000 different people and smushed together. I mean, there's literally like, there's 60 different books in the Bible written by different people in different languages, smushed together. Like, why would it make sense? It doesn't make sense. We can try, like, Christians really do try to make it make sense. But it doesn't. You can't just... Yeah, like, you know, I'm a fan of good quotes, you know, and like truthful statements and stuff, but you don't need the Bible for that. Like, we can, like, why do you need the Bible to tell people that you should forgive sometimes? Like, I don't need someone to tell me that this book was written by God for me to believe that. Like, I can say, okay, yeah, sometimes I should just forgive people. Like, why do you have to tell me that? Oh, well, you have to do it because God commanded you to do that. And if you don't do it, you're going to go to hell. Like, I don't need that. That's not necessary. So we can just kind of do away with this Bible shit, because I think people are smart enough now to just, like, you can just go on Quora or something. You can just, like, people can write. You can just journal down things that you think are good ideas. And then you can just do them. You don't have to, like, get some authority from some imaginary higher power that tells you, yeah, you actually should forgive. Oh, thank God, because I was going to... What? Like, the Bible is just not mind-blowing shit at all. It's not. It's like basically saying, hey, you should be a good person. Because in the past, people bad. So people be good now. Because good is good, bad is bad. Ooh. Yeah, I get that. But you don't even really actually get that picture from the Bible whenever you actually sit down and think about it. Like, when you actually look at the Bible objectively for what it is. Because the problem is Christians can't actually see the Bible for what it is. Ask me how I know. Because you're always reading it with the end goal. Like, your end goal in mind is to walk away still believing it. You know, you're not going into it open-minded. Because you know that, okay, how can I read the Bible and then, you know, how do I, like, read the Bible and make sure that it always makes sense to me? Because if it doesn't make sense, that means I'm doing something wrong when I'm reading it. You know, that's the way that Christians think. And, like, we don't do that with anything else. Like, if you're reading a mathematic textbook and it says, you know, 2 + 2 = 5, you go, oh, well, I need to figure out why I'm not understanding this. I must be wrong here. Like, what if I told you that that book was written by God? You know, then would you be questioning yourself? Probably not. Hopefully you would be questioning it even more, you know? But that's not what people do. People do the opposite. Like, if you are just driven, like, if your main goal in life, if the top thing in life for you is being a Christian, you're not going to look at the Bible objectively. Like, even if something doesn't make sense to you, you're going to take the blame for it because that's what you've been doing. Because, you know, religion is for losers. So, religion is for people with low self-esteem. And so you look at it and you're like, oh, you know, I've always been wrong, so I'm probably just being wrong again here too, you know. If the Bible isn't making sense to me here, it's just because I'm misinterpreting it. This is my fault. Because that's the kind of person that Christianity is geared towards. Losers. But, like, if God was so good, if he was so committed to forgiving people, you know, he could have just forgiven Adam and Eve the first time and prevented the whole fallout. Instead of cursing them to the ground, cursing them to infinite labor for the rest of their life. Like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. For someone who is claiming, like, that forgiveness is, like, one of the most important things you can ever do, for someone that is commanding people to forgive constantly, and he can't even do it once, like, the first time. Like, that would be like if I were to, like, kill my child because they tripped the first time they tried walking. Like, that was the first time that Adam and Eve had ever been given a command, ever. They didn't have, like, a past history of, like, do's and don'ts, you know? Like, disobedience isn't even a concept in their mind, because disobedience isn't a thing that has ever existed. So it's like, why would you be surprised that they would trip up? They've never done this obedience thing before. Just like my little child has never walked before. Of course they're going to trip. You know, why would it make any sense for me to beat my child, my like 2-year-old child, because they tripped the first time they tried walking? What? So you just can't actually look at the Bible objectively and come away thinking, oh yeah, that's a good person, that God guy. That Christian God is just he's just all around a good person. You know, he always does what he can to prevent violence and to avoid violent conflicts. Because that's not true. He actually goes out of his way to commit violence. Like, all of the wars that happen in the Old Testament, like, if God was infinite, and if God actually didn't like people dying, and if he didn't like people being killed, like, he could have just stopped it from happening, you know? Oh, it's not that simple. It is that simple. I mean, I just don't understand. Like, I would say that I'm generally, like, I'm a pretty smart guy, But you do not have to be that smart to realize this. So I don't know if the like grandiose religiosity of Americans is, I mean, maybe it's a result of like parents, like maybe it's the result of mothers drinking alcohol while they're pregnant. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an actual explanation, like how people can actually be so gullible. But I mean, it probably could be just as simple as people being so desperate to fit in, people being so desperate to have like a community, that they're not really going to even investigate that much what the community is built upon. Because honestly, like, if you're someone that was invited to church just by like a random person, or you just happened to go to a church, like odds are you probably didn't actually like completely investigate Christianity. Like you probably just looked up, oh, these people seem nice. It has good reviews on Google. You know, I want friends, so I'm just going to go here. And that's all that you really do. And then you end up calling yourself a Christian or whatever. And you know, I go back and forth because I know the vast majority of Christians, maybe all of them, really don't understand what they're believing in. They haven't actually looked at, I don't know if they've ever actually thoroughly looked at any texts or articles or write-ups that are critical of Christianity, like thoroughly critical. Like it's probably more like they've read like 99% of the literature they've read about their religion has been supportive and positive of it, you know? They haven't read anything that's critical of their religion. And it's like, you would think, if you're going to make the religion the most important thing in your life, you should probably be pretty well versed in the criticisms for that religion. And not just the criticisms that, and when I say criticisms, I don't mean like Christians saying, oh, this is what other people are criticizing us for, or this is what non-Christians are saying about us. No, actually go and read what the non-Christians, what the critical people are saying. Actually get it from them firsthand. Just like you're getting the support for Christianity firsthand. You know, that's only fair. But the thing is, people want to believe. That is the problem. They want to believe more than they want to be. They want to believe more than they want the truth, really. Like people are just, like I saw that in my mom and in my dad a lot. They didn't trust people because those people were trustworthy. They more so just trusted those people because they really just wanted to trust someone. And that's really, it is sad. And when I say that religion is for losers, I say that because that was me. That was my entire family. Like just chronic losers. People who have been stepped on, poor, overlooked, low self-esteem, no confidence, bullied by their parents, parents, and so on and so forth. That, you know, a religion, like something that gives you something to believe in, is just something that you just need. You get to a point where you just need to believe in something. And it doesn't even necessarily matter how true it is. You just need to believe in something that makes you feel good. And that's why a lot of people are religious, because their lives have just been so shit. And so, you know, I don't completely blame people for being religious in the past. You know, when times were really hard and the only thing that could keep you going was the motivation of an afterlife, because so many people did live in slavery not that long ago, really. Like, it wasn't even, like, slavery was not even a full lifetime ago. That's crazy. Like, when was slavery outlawed in the United States? Oh, it actually has been a while. 1865. Man, I don't know why I thought it would have been more recent than that. That is a long time. So, maybe I actually have less sympathy for why people are still religious. I mean, I guess poverty was still very much a thing 100 years ago in the US, but I don't know, man. Well, I guess to be fair, people 100 years ago were definitely still recovering from the effects of slavery. Because 100 years ago would have been 1926. And that was only like 60 years after slavery ended, so I don't know, man. But there really is no reason why people need to continue to be religious in the 21st century. Like, there's really not. Like, you have all the resources available to you. You have the internet that you can use to actually research whether what you're believing in is true or not. Like, you don't need this religion thing to have a good life anymore. Like, you don't need to hope. You can just go have a good life. Like, women, you are at the point, in human history now where you can just go get a divorce. Like, you don't have to sit there hoping that Jesus is going to come and save you. You can just go get a divorce. And I know there's exceptions to that, but for the most part, you can just go get a divorce. If your life just sucks, like, you can, like, unless you have just a crippling disease, you can generally go make your life better by making good decisions. You don't need to sit there and just pray and pray and pray. Like, you can actually go out there and fix things. And you don't need to go sit there, you don't need to sit there and just be praying for the kids in Africa to, like, get food. Like, how would you start with fixing starvation in your own country, in your own town? Have you thought of that? Like, you actually can do something to reduce the amount of starvation in the world. You don't need to sit there and act all hopeless and, I mean, we don't even have, like, there's even, like, less of a need for, like, prosperity gospel now too, because it's just like you don't need prosperity that gospel that much when people already are prosperous, like, you don't need Joel Osteen encouraging you all the time that you can go live a good life, you can have a lot of money. Like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm actually doing that right now. Because that's the reality now. You don't need someone, like, you don't need these religious pastors. Like, you don't need to go give money to these churches to make a difference anymore. Like, they're not the only people that are doing good, You can just do the good yourself, honestly. Like, the average person in the U.S. has enough money now to just change the world themselves, for the most part. Like, you don't have to rely on this big organization to do the good works for you. You don't have to rely on missionaries and all that. You can just go do it yourself if you actually believe in it, Like, you're not a slave. You can go and be a missionary on the weekends. Like, shouldn't you want to take care of your own country before you are taking care of, like, Nepal or something? But I hate to say, like, lack of critical thinking, but I think that's kind of what it is. I think it's people who have just been people who, like my mother, is what I think of. People who have just been taught just believe this because you should believe it. Just keep believing, just kind of like how we tell kids with Santa Claus, like, just believe because you're supposed to believe. And people don't always question that. Or maybe it's people that have, probably people who have experienced trauma, but not really fully processed that trauma. Because, like, I've had some pretty horrible things happen to me. And it's ironic because my mother had even worse things happen to her, and my father as well. Yet they somehow became extremely religious. And I really think it's because they never actually took the time to understand those feelings and that trauma that happened to them. And they were just so eager to find They were just so eager to find like a reason, like an explanation for why that trauma had to happen to them, you know? Because they didn't want to believe that they were just wronged and there was no good reasoning behind it at all. Because that is a horrible fucking feeling. Ask me how I know. Like that is, I think that realization itself is worse than the trauma. Realizing that there was no need for it at all, it was completely pointless and unnecessary, and you would have been 100% better off without it. Because that really does confront you with the reality that you just had your life wasted. Like you had just had time robbed from you. You had health and well-being robbed from you for no real good reason. Like it could have just been avoided. And it simply could have been avoided and your life would have been great. And that is a crippling realization. Because there's no way that you can just look at your parents or your abusers the same way after that. Like, they didn't abuse me for a good reason. They just abused me to abuse me. Like, they didn't take my health away from me for 18 years so that they could then give me double the health back after that for the rest of my life. No, they just took the health away from me and that's it. They just and made the rest of my life worse. And so I think for a lot of people that's just too much. Because that realization on top of the actual events that happened to you, the actual actions that were done against you, it's just too much, I think. Because then you're just completely shattered psychologically. Like your identity as a person is just shattered. Because you really can't call yourself a son or daughter of your parents anymore. Because it doesn't make sense to you that parents would do that to their son or their daughter. So for people like my parents, it just is more, it's more congruent with their line of thinking to figure out why they deserved those things to happen to them. And in a twisted way, that's what Christianity does. It teaches you that, you know, you need to do something before you can actually be forgiven. You know, you got to repent, believe, confess. You got to do all these crazy psychological steps before you can actually be deserving of something as good as forgiveness, something as basic as forgiveness. Like Christianity teaches its followers that deep down inside, they are horrible, wretched, filthy, sinful beings. Like from the day they were born, they're dirty. They're dirty and sinful. And like when you've been a victim your whole life, like my parents were, that just feels true. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. That's exactly how I've felt my whole life. And just accepting that that's part of their identity because that's the identity that they've always known. It's a lot easier. And it's a lot easier than actually fighting back against that and realizing the truth that, no, I'm actually not a bad person. I actually am a good person. But I've just pretty much only ever had bad things happen to me. And none of it is actually my fault at all. Like, how could the abuse that happened to me when I was a kid, how could that be my fault? Like, how could I have come out of the womb evil and deserving of bad things to happen to me? And maybe you're a Christian and you're saying, oh, well, we don't believe that. Then I would say you're probably not a Christian, because that is exactly what the religion teaches. It's exactly what the Bible says. No, but you're like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. You're right, it doesn't make sense. Because, you know, there's that verse in Jeremiah that says that, you know, God has great plans for you. You know, that was Isaiah, I think. But, you know, God knit you in your mother's womb. Okay, well, he obviously didn't do a good job if immediately when I come out of my mother's womb, I'm completely sinful. Like, what? You know, when you're actually a rational, healed person, you realize that it just makes no sense. And that those pastors up in the pulpit, like, just because they're saying things confidently and with conviction, it doesn't mean that they're right at all. Like, actually, the world is not going to shit. It's just these select handful of people in my life that made my whole life shit. And so that's why I think the world is going to shit. Yeah, it's all that to say is that the religion is for losers to feel better about being losers. Like, Christianity does not convert losers into winners. It makes losers feel comfortable with the fact that they're losers. It's like, yeah, you've been wronged, but someday, like, retribution is going to come to that person. At least you're a good person. At least you're sitting there and reading your Bible like a good person. At least you're the one that's repenting. Keep working diligently and quietly, and eventually things are going to get better for you. Yeah, but that's not how it works. You don't just keep doing the same thing forever and expect things to get better. You have to actually make radical changes. You actually have to cut horrible people out of your life. Like, if you felt like shit your whole life, you need to cut your parents out of your life. Okay? It's really that simple. Because, like I've said a million times, like, if you felt like shit your whole life, that is not normal. Like, that's not the case for people that had good parents. They don't feel like shit all the time. Like, if you feel like shit, it's because of your parents. Get rid of them. You can do that. You can just do that. Yeah, I just remember there sitting in the pews in the sermon, and I felt like, yeah, I really don't feel like I'm deserving of forgiveness, because that's so much of what Christianity tells people, is that, you're not deserving of forgiveness at all, actually. And do you think that creates parents who give forgiveness willingly to their kids? Or do you think it creates parents who make sure their kids know that they messed up, and that they don't deserve forgiveness, but because you as a parent are such a good parent, you're going to give it to them? Like, does that sound healthy to you? No. Like, there shouldn't be steps involved to giving a kid forgiveness. You just give it to them. Like, they don't have to repent or, like, deeply apologize and get on their knees and worship anybody. They shouldn't have to do any of that to get forgiveness. Because they're just kids. They're deserving of forgiveness. But that's just not what Christianity teaches. Because, the first chance God had to forgive his creation, his children, he sentenced them to death. So that's not really a good precedent for building healthy relations between Christian parents and Christian children. Well, not Christian parents and Christian children, because it's really just Christian parents and children. Because those kids aren't actually religious. They're not actually religious if you're forcing them to be religious, And another thought is, like, if God wanted to forgive, if he actually really was committed to forgiving, he could also just give people a chance to forgive after they died. Because, like, if we have eternal souls, and this life is just like a drop in the ocean of time, why would it really be a big deal if we repented after dying? Like, is death just so powerful over God that he just can't do anything to reverse that? Because it seems like death actually does have a lot of power of God if he's completely unable to extend forgiveness to people after they die. Like, why shouldn't people be allowed to look back on their life after they die and be like, actually, I wish I hadn't done that. Like, why do they have to be sentenced to eternity in hell? Like, they had 80 years. Like, you're only really giving them 80 years out of 1,000,000 years to repent. It's actually not that long. Like, you're really not giving them much of a chance at all. If you're telling me that people have souls, which they don't, it's not a real thing. But if you're telling me people actually do have souls, and they leave Earth and then they go to some imaginary place like heaven or hell for an infinite amount of time, then that's like, That's a lot of time that they should be given to, reflect and change their mind. Because you tell me just because they're dead, they're worth less? Like, just because they're not in a body, that means they're worth less now? They have less freedom in terms of forgiving and stuff? Being forgiven? Like, why? There's not really a good explanation for that. Unless you're just going to say that, death is just extremely powerful. Like, God can't do anything to undo. God just can't forgive you after you've died because death is just too strong for God to handle, It's like, what if you're sitting there in hell and you genuinely do realize, like, oh my God, I did fuck up, and I am sorry, and I do want to go back and I wish I could undo what I did. Like, why is that so inconceivable? Because what God would say? He would say no. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that out of the, billions of people in hell, supposedly, not a single one of them, you're telling me, wants to, not a single one of them has changed their mind about anything after being in hell for, millions of years or whatever. Not a single one of them has changed their mind. It doesn't make sense to me. Because there's people in prison that change. And hell is basically prison. So why wouldn't those people change their mind? Ever, Because if I'm God, and I can literally see into people's hearts, and I see that there's someone in hell that actually does want to change, why wouldn't I forgive them? And maybe you're like, oh, well, actually, that does make sense. I think God would do that. Now you're just making shit up. Because that's nowhere in the Bible. And that's the problem with religion like this, like Christianity, is people just can interpret it whichever way they want to, or they think they can, and then they can still call themselves a Christian. Like, you don't have to be a Christian to be a good person. You can just be a good person and leave this whole religion shit out of it, like the rest of the first world countries do, besides America. You know what I mean? Like, God really does not do that much forgiving in the grand scheme of things. Because he didn't even forgive the first little mistake that people made. Instead of forgiving them, he sentenced them to hell. And he sentenced them to die. And he sentenced them to have pain. Like, that's fucking crazy. That is literally, that's even worse than murdering your baby because they tripped the first time they tried to walk. But not only does he do that, like, God is proud of the fact. He's proud of the fact that most people don't go to heaven. Like, he's like, oh, only a select few people will, enter the gates of heaven, or whatever. Like, the narrow road versus the wide road to hell. Why are you proud of that? Why are you proud of this system that literally you created? You knew this was going to happen. And you could have just, switched that around to where more people are going to heaven than are going to hell, Like, you're the one that is literally controlling the conditions of the earth and the universe. You're just letting shit happen. And if you tell me, oh, well, God doesn't control the earth or whatever, why not? If you literally know what is best for everybody's survival, why wouldn't you intervene? So, you can say, oh, well, he doesn't have control over the earth, but the fact is he could if he wanted to. But the truth is he's just sitting there and letting shit fall apart. So not only, like I said, does God choose not to forgive the first little, small thing, the first small little mistake that people made by eating an apple from a tree. Not a tree of, it wasn't a tree of rape and murder and genocide. It was the tree of knowledge. Isn't that kind of concerning that this God would punish people for eating from a tree that gives them knowledge? That kind of sounds like something Hitler would do. Oh, these people are trying to learn more and understand more about good things to do and bad things to do. Yeah, I'm going to punish them and give them pain and death for that. Jesus. Not only does he do that, he's proud of this system that he's created where the majority of people are going to hell, per the themes in the Bible, from what we've read, and the minority of people are going to heaven. What? That would be like a president of a country being proud of most people being in jail and only a few people being successful in life? Like why are you proud of that? Like everyone would think that that president was a horrible person if they could do something. Like they could do something to fix that. And like maybe say, oh well, yeah, they're deserving of it maybe. Okay. But you can't tell me that it makes sense for the majority of people to be going to jail for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Like you should be rehabilitating them to where only the minority of people are in jail. So maybe if the majority of people in the country are genuinely just horrible, okay, I can understand why the majority would be in jail. But if you're telling me like the majority of people in your country have been in jail for the past 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, I think you're probably doing a really bad job of rehabilitating them. And that is the case with God. Like, okay, we get it. People are sinful according to you, whatever that means. But what are you actually doing to fix that? Like, if you're telling me more and more and more people over time are going to hell, and you're a good, all-powerful God, that means that you're not really doing your job if this is your universe. And you are your biggest thing is the fact that you are a good God. Like, that's your biggest adjective, is being good. But the very universe that you created and control has the majority of people being seen as bad and being punished all the time. Like, that means that your system is not working if that's been what's happening for the past thousands of years. Like, it's not working. And you're like, oh, well, like, you know, time, like 1,000 years is just like a second to God. Okay, but what about those lives? What about those billions and billions of lives? I thought that every soul was important to God. You know, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So, like, if you're telling me that, like, time doesn't matter, then you're telling me that, like, people don't really matter because people are bound by time. We don't live forever. So if every 1,000 years is like a second to God, then you're telling me that, like, every like million people, every 1 billion people, they're like an ant, basically. Like, that seems pretty careless to me. Because are people not made in God's image? Like he's kind of defiling himself by being so callous to his own creation. Like, these are the people that you made in your image. This is your, like, prized creation. And you've let billions and billions and billions of them just die and be tortured forever. Like, you chose this. Like, it doesn't matter that 1,000 years are like a second to you. Like, you should be sympathetic to that creation that you made, because you know that, you know, 1,000 years to a human is not like a second. 1,000 years is 1,000 years. And you're just sitting there with your system that has millions of people, billions of people in prison being tortured. And it's only been getting worse, apparently, for the last 1,000-something years. And you're just okay with that. Like, it doesn't matter that 1,000 years are like a second or to you or whatever. What matters is that there's billions of people being tortured and you just don't really care. You just see them as a number. You're just seeing them as like a little... another brick in the wall, pretty much. Another cog in the machine of your great plan. Because, you know, I'm thinking if God's great plan involves billions of people being genocided and tortured infinitely, I'm thinking that maybe this plan isn't really worth it, you know? Like, if you found out that the tallest skyscraper in the world, if you find out that it had required millions of people to die in the construction of it, do you think it was really worth it? No, I don't think so. Like, because it's just a building. Like, we could have just drawn a picture of it. It's just a building. It's just a view. It's like, if you're telling me that God is sending billions of people to hell as a part of this plan, what is the plan? For, like, more people to go to heaven in the future? Like, how long is that going to take? Like, are we going to get to like 200 billion people in hell before we get to 1 billion people in heaven? Like, is this like a million-year process where like it eventually becomes profitable? Like, eventually we get to a point where we have more people in heaven than in hell. But I don't think I could be proud of that if I was the project manager of that project. Like, yeah, I finally got to the point where I have more people in heaven than in hell. But unfortunately, it did take 200 trillion people burning in hell. And they're there forever. Like, they're there forever or something like that. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, you got people getting stabbed and raped and their skin scratched off, getting boiling hot water poured onto them, and that's a part of his good plan? That's crazy. That's worse than slavery. So God is using slavery as a part of his master plan to bring good to everybody? What? Like, if he's so strong and powerful, like, it wouldn't take him a million years to get to a point where he has more people in heaven than in hell. Like, he could just expedite that process, you know? Like, just expedite the process a little bit so we don't have to have kids dying and shit. It's crazy. Like, this concept of forgiveness by God should not even be a thing, because first of all, there's no such thing as sin. Second of all, there's no such thing as God. Those things aren't real. So it's not possible to sin against God. So there's nothing that you need to ask for forgiveness for. Like, you don't feel like shit because because you need forgiveness. You feel like shit because you have had horrible parents. You've had a bad life. Like, you don't need forgiveness. You need to, like, change your life and get away from those people. And you need to start actually taking care of yourself. And you need to stop believing that you are a horrible person that's deserving of punishment. Like, would you, like, if you had a child, would you actually teach them that if you loved them? Would you teach them that they're deserving of punishment and that they have to go through this big, long psychological process with steps before they can be deserving of forgiveness? Like, would you teach your child that? That they're internally bad? Like, if you loved them, would you do that? Would you want someone to do that to you? If you were a newborn child? No. Like, what healthy people do when they have a kid is they give that kid everything. They give it love and adoration no matter what. And you know what happens? That kid grows up to feel good and be happy and do good things in the world. Like, people who are raised by good parents, they don't just magically become serial killers and bad people. Like, you do bad things because you feel bad. It's that simple. You feel good. Like, you do good things because you feel good. You know, what's in eventually comes out. But if you're constantly telling yourself this lie that you are a bad person that deserves punishment, like, if you're constantly telling yourself that, you're never going to have a fruitful life, ever. Like, it shouldn't be like, oh, well, yeah, I'm a good person, but as long as it's through Christ. Like, I'm a whole person, but I'm only made whole through Christ. And it's like you have that big but in there because you don't actually fully believe that you are a good person. You don't actually fully believe that you are a whole person. Like, I'm deserving of good things, but only because Christ has died for my sins and given that to me. Like, that is just... that is like a small little good thing that's wrapped up in guilt and shame. Like, on the surface, like, on the surface it sounds like a good thing, but really on the inside you're saying, you know, like, I'm deserving of good things, but to a certain point. Like, only if certain criteria are met am I deserving of good things. Like, no. Like, you shouldn't believe that. And I understand there's people out there that have done horrible things, but teaching them that they're horrible people, that's not going to help. Like, you really think that if you teach someone that they're, like, let's say someone has killed someone or raped someone or tortured someone, you think that further instilling the idea that they're a bad person is going to help them to start to do good things one day? No. Like, they know that they aren't a good person. I promise. Like, you could go ask criminals. They don't feel good about themselves. They're not. They might act like it at first. Kind of like how Christians act like they feel good about themselves at first. But deep down they don't, you know. Because, you know, if those criminals had actually felt good about themselves, they would have never had any reason to, like, rape somebody or torture somebody or kill somebody, unless it was like self-defense or something. And it's in the same way, like, Christians, if they actually felt good about themselves, they wouldn't have to be on their knees begging for forgiveness all the time. They wouldn't have to be constantly feeling like they need to repent. Because the only reason you need to constantly be repenting is if you just feel like shit. And, you know, messing up should not destroy you every single time you mess up. Like, you don't need to ask for forgiveness every time you mess up. That's crazy. I'm going to lose my voice if I keep going, but that was good.